conversation I had with Jill and John and Gina, I recall came back that all the focus groups, one of which was the teachers, agreed that, yeah, performance-based pay was okay to be a portion of that. And that same afternoon, we got an email, or John did, from
Yeah, I saw that
the
email.
compensation
What's
committee, that
going
they
on?
were not interested in us. So I was totally conflicted with what Jill had communicated, I thought, earlier that day to our group.
Well, I don't know that those were the same individuals.
It's, well, it tells me something's
6
out of
focus groups,
sync.
1 group of teachers, and I believe the statement was the overriding consensus of all the focus groups at that point, because we had just started the in-depth interviews, were when asked about how they thought teachers should be compensated to retain and attract the best teachers. We had to broach the subject of merit-based or performance-based pay. It wasn't brought up as a prevalent component to us, and when it was, well, it should, if they're talking about performance-based pay, that should mean based on test scores. So we didn't hear a lot of pushback in terms of that being a component. We did hear pushback if that component was the vast majority of how teachers were compensated, or if that component was, the definition of it was based on test scores. So that at that point was what we had heard.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I guess, from my perspective, who said what when really doesn't make a difference tonight. We have the results of what Burgess and Burgess did in accordance with the contract that we entered with them to do. Their recommendation at this point is to do a micro survey so that we can have some finite data to base our decision on. So
To base a
if we
decision,
need-
on what decision?
to
put
make,
them out?
to decide are we even gonna go forward in May with anything, in my view? Because
I thought a while back that
no,
we
we
were.
have not decided
Okay.
anything
All right.
about that. There's been a lot of talk about should it be in May, should it be 1 issue, should it be 2 issues, should it be this, should it be that?
That's what I thought we hired our consultant
And
to
that's,
figure out.
exactly,
That
we
is not what
hired
we
the
hired.
consultants
That's
to
what we hired.
help
That's all
us
true. To communicate.
understand
Help us with
what
communication.
our community wants.
When we hired her, or hired Burgess and Burgess, I don't remember any discussion about they'll help us figure out if we should put a ballot on it.
That is absolutely why we hired them. They are the expert. They have passed levy over levy over levy, and that's exactly why we wanted to bring them in, because they're an expert in what they
It
do.
wasn't to decide whether we put a ballot on the issue in May or not.
They're not making the decision. We are, based on what they're finding.
Shh, tone it down, come on.
Well, Scott, you are completely off base.
Yeah, I think we're at the point now where
You're-
you guys want to bring up a motion that otherwise it continues on.
Well, I mean, that's the next part of the old business, which was the part of the consultant report, and the next part is the discussion, the levy discussion. So I don't, they sort of overlap on that.
Well, I think the survey is part of the consultant.
That's why I said,
Yeah.
I thought you were there, I'm sorry.
Well, and so they did sort of overlap.
So we're going forward with the survey, or is there a motion to not go forward?
Do we need a motion?
Well,
Because
that's
if we
what,
need
I
a
don't even know if you
motion,
need it,
I'll
I
make
don't
a
even know if you need
motion.
one.
Well, we don't need a motion to go forward
But
with
you
the
need
survey.
one to, you need a motion to
To
withdraw.
amend the contract.
It's in the
If it
contract,
did not,
number
if
8,
it did not
in the
take it
contract.
off.
Right. Let's move on.
All right, so let's move on to levy discussion. All right, so we've got, I guess we have to make an assumption about whether, or what the results may be. And let's say the results of the survey suggest that we ought to put the operating levy on. Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. I could have been under the misapprehension that we had decided. I thought it was pretty solid. We didn't make a vote, not that I can remember voting on it, but I thought that was what the timeline was about putting these dates together and making sure we had everything done for the appropriate deadlines for the filing, that we were pretty set on putting something on the ballot in May. Am I wrong? I mean,
I think that was Scott's recommendation, that was your initial.
that was his,
what you
we
proposed.
talked about it, I mean, come on.
And we certainly talked about
Yeah,
it.
sure we did.
Nobody was.
Nobody-
at that
nobody
time
said the
was
first word
opposed
about it.
to it.
Well,
We
I-
were going forward with
Because
that.
we did not have the information from Burgess and Burgess
That's what
to
I said,
help us,
Carla, I said at
to
that
We
help
were gonna do it
us
without
make
the
a
information.
decision.
We were gonna do it
Carla,
without the
at that time I
information.
said there was no opposition to it, I didn't say further information,
Yeah.
I'm pointing out what
There
Tom
was
said
no
is
vote
correct.
taken.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
But there was an understanding, I mean, I guess I just thought this was gonna happen, and then it got a little bit derailed, from, in my opinion, because of the recommendation or the, sort of the suggestion you had made about making some, merit-based component about that. Now, am I wrong about that? I just wanna find out where that's what my understanding was.
My recollection
Yeah.
is that we, I think, had definitely agreed that we need to do something in terms of operating dollars. And I think we all agreed that there needed to be something done in terms of the stadium. The question about stadium really became kind of a timing issue. And I recommended that we put both together because I had strong concerns that one would pass and one would fail. And to me, whichever direction that went, if one passed and one failed, that could be very, very detrimental in terms of how we proceed forward with our mission here of educating students. So I was recommending that they be combined. Then actually, as with discussion, Mrs. Frame brought up the possibility of doing just compensation or operating dollars in May, or as our most important vote, as that's our most important issue, and the possibility of moving stadium off to the next election. That resonated with me. I, again, truly believe that both are very, very important issues. However, as I have stated since the day I was hired, our most important issue is always going to be our operating dollars. Not that the stadium isn't a liability, not that we don't have other liability issues and concerns with our other facilities. They're all important issues. And I guess now at the point of believing that gathering the data to help us, either prove the focus group information to be correct or to be not correct, if you will, that is very important information, as well as giving us feedback, because we never ever talked about a dollar amount, which is always a huge issue with whatever we do in terms of a levy. So in terms of the timing of whether we're on in May or not in May, I don't know that I would disagree that I think through a straw poll, we all agreed that operating dollars was definitely something that was a concern in May. Others were definitely for having both issues on
Yeah.
separate
Oh, yeah.
in May. I was definitely not for putting them separate, but definitely the possibility of combining them because I was overly concerned about, again, one
Right.
passing and one failing, whichever direction that would be.
Okay.
So I think we're really back to the levy discussion question of really, my mind, still needing the information that I was always expecting to glean from a survey and help inform and give information to the board that would be, what might the dollar amount be? What are the most pressing issues?
Okay. Well, I just want to address the rest of the board members on this, because it's a concern of mine. I don't know that much about unions, I'm not really, I don't know the first thing about organizing one, or what the timelines are, how long it takes. I know it takes a little while. I do know that. Does the fact that the staff has looked at the proposal, I guess the merit-based aspect of it, now, and I don't want to mischaracterize what's going on either, but have weighed that in the balance, we'll say, and decided, no, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and unionize, or attempt to unionize. Does that have any impact on you at all? Is that a game? That's sort of a game changer for me, because what that tells me is that, maybe we'll just wait and not put anything on in May, and let this whole union thing play out. That's what they want, that's what they've gone with.
Hold on.
I don't know.
If I
Oh, my
could,
gosh.
let me first
I
characterize
don't know,
and
I'm
make sure. We at the moment do not know whether we will have a union or not.
Okay,
have a
see,
union.
and that's,
Okay?
I'm
That
gonna
is-
easily be ignorant of that whole thing.
That whole process will have to play itself out in terms of whether or not there truly is enough support from our certified staff
Okay.
to want to go in that direction. So that is not, I think it's premature to to say that we will absolutely have a union or
Okay.
not have a union, because
I
that
don't
is a
know.
process that has to be worked through.
Okay,
Now, whether or not that actually impacts your thinking one way or the other, again.
well, that's what I was asking you.
That's a
That's what I was asking
that's a
about.
question.
I would say that I don't think we can afford to lose another 30 teachers, and if it would happen again. I think that we need to find a way to compensate our staff. If they have a union or they don't, we still need to find a way to have some funds, to have some flexibility, to be able to compensate them comparable to other teachers in our area. Because I don't want to continue losing staff. It doesn't mean, I don't know for sure that we will, I don't have a crystal ball at all.
No,
But I
understood.
think that certainly last year was an indicator. And I think that we need to look at things like that in making our decisions.
Yeah, nobody wants to, I mean, we're all, nobody wants that
Oh,
to
yeah,
happen
I
again.
know,
Nobody does.
I know.
Nobody does. So it's all
But I
just
guess
a,
that's a bigger factor in my making a decision than a union or no union, personally.
well, I'm not saying that we don't do it eventually. I'm just thinking, well, do we wait and see how that whole thing works out? I don't know how those things work. Maybe I
Well,
should.
I guess I'm on the same page as Kate. No matter what happens, we don't have the dollars to fund what we want to do for our teachers. We already know we
No,
don't have
let's
enough
put it all in
money
May. Let's
to
let's-
put, you know, this
let's
and
put it on, let's
this.
put it all in May. We can put it all in May without the survey.
Well, I think the survey's gonna give us
Yeah.
information,
Yeah,
whether we should or not, whether our
Right.
community will
What?
support it.
And to how much?
Well, that's, I mean, I realize there's other questions about the dollar amount and stuff, but let's put it on. Let it, see what happens.
Do you have?
So you don't, so I guess what you're saying is that the results of the survey would dictate for you, I mean, I don't know how statistically accurate they are, whether or not we put one, I'm saying let's just move forward.
No, the results from the survey would impact,
Okay.
yes, my decision
All right.
making.
I don't know if they would change my mind for one reason. Really?
No, it wouldn't be, obviously, because I brought it up back in October, and
Yeah.
I was willing back then to, even before Burgess was even on
Yeah, I
their
say put it,
contract.
if it would be, and I say
I
put it on
said,
about,
let's
I
go
say put it
forward and
on.
let the voters decide,
I say put it on, I say put them both on. Put 'em
argue
both on,
argue the
you know.
points and make our issues, as
Make
best
the
we
argument?
can apparent with the voters,
Yeah, about
and we hope we get them to support both the issues.
Yeah. That's my goal.
And that could ultimately be what the results come back from the survey.
Well, maybe, but I mean, if that's,
If they don't,
Yeah,
I'd
my
say we-
opinion would be, we're speculating on a lot of things right here. We're going ahead with the survey, right? Let's get the results of the survey and whatever else may happen, and maybe that influences public opinion. You know, I don't, you know, at this point, we don't know, but let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
that's fine too. I was just kind of curious how you all felt about that, because I really,
well, I'm not, both these issues, I'm not afraid to ask the voters whether they'll support it or not. Do the best campaign we can, and we've done levies for years that way. This is the first operating levy, as I mentioned before, that we now require a survey before we decide to go forward with it. We've never done that before.
yeah, I've just gone regular,
We've
let's just
done
do
it, that
it.
doesn't mean that it's wrong to do.
Right.
Two elections ago, certainly, we should have done something to change our messaging, to do something different, to try to, you know.
Well,
Okay,
you
one of the
mentioned-
board members had mentioned to me up until 3 months ago, we needed to do a survey before we would go forward with an operating. That's never come up before
It was
until.
right in the contract for the
No, but I'm
consultant.
saying before that, no one is, I've never had a discussion with anybody that, hey, before we do a survey, do a operating levy next time, we need to do a survey first.
Yeah,
That
I
is
guess,
not,
I wouldn't, I think that if we're talking semantics, I think it's a specific word, but I think we've always said we have to weigh what
What
the
the
public will
community- right.
bear with the needs we have. And I
Which is
think
all.
you gain information. You know, I don't know how more information, could we have too much information? I suppose we could. We could go door to door, talk to every person in town, and at an exorbitant cost to our taxpayers. That would be inappropriate. But to work within the framework with our consultant, to have measurable scientific data, to me, seems to be the smartest way to be able to go forward. I don't think that a levy campaign is the same now as the levy campaigns I worked on 20 years ago. I don't think you can message the same. I don't think you can information out. I just think we need more information personally. I think that we need to adequately compensate our teachers. I think that
Well,
we
everybody
should.
does,
We all
everybody
say
does,
that.
yeah, I mean,
Sure.
everybody.
Keep saying that, we
Yeah.
get it, we agree, we all agree on that point.
Everybody thinks that.
We agree, we don't wanna continue losing teachers, we wanna remain competitive.
Okay, let me finish what I was going to say, which was that I think we need to strike while the iron's hot, that we do have a community that this information indicates, at least our stakeholders, our internal stakeholders, are very aware that we lost a lot of teachers last year, and that.
Right. Well, let me, did that tell you anything that you did not already know?
There were a lot of things that weren't surprises to me. Yeah, it told me that the stadium is not as high of a priority.
We had that from Fallon. We knew that from the Fallon survey.
I guess
Well, I knew that from Fallon survey.
it didn't stand out to me there.